You want to annotate like this, but don't know how and wonder how much people have to say about a quote anyways? For me, annotating becomes a unique dialogue between you and the story and the characters, making the reading experience more personal and vivid for you. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sofía, but you can call me Soph, and today I have a very exciting video because I've been thinking about this for the longest time. I already have a post regarding this topic on my bookstagram at literature. However, I decided to go deeper and to share more insights about my methods for annotating and also give it a more academic perspective, if I do say so myself. If you didn't know, I'm an English literature and linguistics graduate. I've always been into the literature world, so that's why I basically picked it up as my degree. But during the last few years, we've seen a lot of people that thoroughly annotate, and there's a whole discourse around it, if you should do it, why you shouldn't do it, things like that. And there are also a lot of talented people that take annotation to a whole different level, making doodles or also different illustrations. They kind of make their books a work of art. I haven't done that myself. I'm more inclined towards the people that extensively annotate, that tend to fill the whole page, all the margins with annotations. That's why I decided to share my knowledge to make it more accessible for everyone. I believe I've acquired a kind of method to achieve this. However, the only way that I could learn to do it was through my degree and all the classes that I had surrounding literature and how to read literature as an academic. So that's why you should engage with annotation in your own terms, with your own take. It's kind of your personal conversation with a book. And also, if we consider how much time annotation takes, it is also an investment. So I'm always an advocate of asking yourself these questions, and if you really want to invest time on annotating, if you really want to enhance your experience in that way, because if you're not really interested in doing this, if it's something that you don't really vibe with, just let it go. It's okay if it's not for you. If you want to try it, go ahead, and then you can decide on your own methods of preference and take advice from this video if you like. Always remember that it is not a chore, and do always what works for you. Okay, so before starting, I want to give the points we will cover today and a little disclaimer. First, we have essentials, everything that I use to annotate, all the materials and pens and tips as well. And also I will show you how to build your tabs guide key, the key or the list with annotation tabs that we see at the beginning of books. And then we will deep dive into how to annotate, the art of annotating, and how people manage to fill out all the margins in the pages. Remember to grab your drink of choice. Today I have my signature iced matcha latte. So first, before going fully into this video, I need to make a disclaimer and make clear, by no means the intention of this video is to come from a patronizing or frivolous position regarding annotation. You can agree with me or not, that's completely fine. I only ask you not to be rude about it if you don't agree with me. Of course, there are things that I will talk about that I don't fully agree with, that showcase the elitism of academia, but that are kind of essential to the point. Everything that will be said here is only advice that I wanted to make available for you only if you feel comfortable with or inclined to take it. I don't necessarily believe there are correct or only ways to annotate, and above all, I encourage you to find your own methods and develop your own annotating routine that adds up to your reading experience overall. However, if you're feeling a little bit lost or you don't know where to start, in this video I'm going to share some tips based on my experience experience as an English literature graduate and what is considered as standard interpretation methods within academia. But though I can recognize and name them, that doesn't mean I don't like annotating silly stuff or random things or just unserious thoughts while reading. By no means I look down on people for doing this. Take whatever that inspires you for the purpose you see fit. Now let's get into the good stuff. Well, first, for writing something, of course, you will be needing writing supplies. And here are my favorite pens or highlighters to annotate. Pilot V500 Extra Fine, Zebra Blend for books with wider margins, or if you just want to underline. This is my favorite one, I swear. The Uniball one, 0.38. I love the tip of this one. Also, it's great because as a lefty, it doesn't smudge when I'm writing. The Pilot Choose Up 0.4. This is one also of my favorites because it's cinnamon roll coated. The other option that is also always available and perfect is your favorite mechanical pencil, or find a pen that doesn't bleed through the pages. Try to find highlighters that do not bleed through the page. My favorite options are mild liners and tomboy brush pens. There are also these Stabilo highlighters that we usually find them in this size. Even though I love these colors that they have, it's true that the bigger versions bleed more through the pages. These usually do not that much, so they could be also a great option. Sometimes I love adding a kind of cute detail to my annotations and to highlight or mark things with these pens, these zebras or asa clip that are glittery. I have them in basically the whole rainbow. I also like to circle some words that I consider important to the whole narrative. I will also talk about that in a minute. Moving along with some tips if you're new at annotating, then you can go further if you feel comfortable with it. First, if you don't want to risk annotating directly into the paper, so that's why maybe you're a little bit reluctant to start annotating, I thoroughly recommend using transparent sticky notes. There are multiple sizes, but biggest ones cover a half of a UK paperback page. Nonetheless, if you want to try this method, the writing tools that work in this kind of paper must be permanent, like a Sharpie. And also I have this touch twin marker, but there are plenty Sharpie colors that you can choose. So basically with this method you can do a more smoother transition to direct annotation, but at the end of the day you don't need to go beyond this. You can stay at this stage. When I started annotating, first I would underline some things with my mechanical pencil and use any tabs that I could find in my house. You can also use some sticky notes to annotate brief summaries at the end of a chapter, or if you need to express a longer thought, if the margins are not enough, or just if you want to give the page a cleaner look. And regarding tabs, you can have basically as much as you want, while also being responsible with your money, of course. Personally, I do have lots and of different colors, but I encourage you to find a specific palette and stick to it if you want. More than themes, you can also use them to tag emotions while reading, like this. When I just started annotating, I usually did that, for example, for things that made me laugh or for things that made me cry. Nowadays, what I tend to do is to match 3 tabs with the color of the book cover I'm reading and tab my favorite parts or whatever I want. That is the case for these books. Well, in exception for this one, I just wanted to bring this one up because this is like one of the 2 books that are more annotated by me. Here are some examples. For instance, Studying Drowning. I tried to match the tabs as much as I could with the cover. Gorgeous cover. However, if I want to go beyond this, I will compose a tabs guide key and set it at one of the first pages of the book, which is the case for these books. I think it really depends on what you want to remember. That's essential thing if you ask me. So it doesn't matter if it's feelings or details, theme explorations, it's up to you. Now, you may be wondering, how do I compose a tabs guide key? What I started doing when I began navigating stories with annotation guides was to look for them in Pinterest, like writing on the search bar, for example, 9th house annotation key or 9th house annotation guide, to have a basic idea of what to look and what I could recognize while reading the book. So then after a few times doing this, I would have them from other people, like the foundations of them, but I would also start adding things myself, themes or topics that I identified or interest me. What most people tend to do is to recognize topics as they go into the first moments of reading, and after some practice I can say that is my case as of now. It is basically that, a lot of practice. If you feel confused or conflicted about how you can do it, also make sure to always use the previous knowledge of the book that you have for at least the first tab keys that you want to include. Most probably those were the things that caught your attention about the book, so that's why it may be something you want to annotate about. For instance, consider genres and subgenres. If you're reading a horror book, ask yourself what aspects of horror the book will contain, or if you just want to tab them in general. For example, you could be also reading a dark academia story, which by the way are my favorites to annotate. You'll maybe want to keep in mind what the setting is, as well as other elements of dark academia, because they will most probably be addressed in the story to get to the core of it. A lot of people, myself included, as I already told you about my first annotating practices, keep a fixed key that mostly involves storytelling elements such as plot, world building, quotes, among others, and they maintain specific colors related to that specific element. I encourage you to explore this method if you're called to it, and also to explore as many colors as you want. Another detail that I love having is to make a stamp in the book with my name. This is just a little detail that I like to have, because if I'm proud of owning something material, it will always be books. However, not only because the book has a stamp with my name on it means that it's mine, but also because the book and I, during this process of annotation, we had a conversation. That is something very special to me. That's why if you feel different about annotation, that's completely fine. But that's the thing. At the end, when you finish annotating a book, there's no other copy in the whole world like the one that you've got in your hands. These are my two most annotated books. Here, I basically annotated pure roasts to the characters and to what they say or how they behave. And here I have Babel, which is also very heavily annotated. Here, anyways, I did go a little bit further and try to make use of my brain cells and decided to annotate it from a literary criticism perspective with some literary frameworks. Here, I basically used a whole page because I needed to. Now to the main topic of this video, how I was able to fill a whole page with my thoughts, and also to do it under a sense of critical thinking, because yes, in this channel we love critical thinking. So now, the important question. What should you take notes of? How to fill the margins with annotations? You don't have to. It's not mandatory to enjoy a book. Every reading experience is personal, and the most important thing is that you find what best works for you. However, if you've been thinking what to write about, I have the key just to unlock your mind's creativity and the special guest of the show, critical thinking. I will never be tired of mentioning it and how important it is and how it always needs to be VIP for every function. We need to go back a bit to establish a common groundwork. I think it's safe to say that literature and storytelling have been one of the most important artistic outlets for humans to explore human condition and emotions from the beginning of Western civilization. I don't want to speak so categorically of the Eastern civilization because I don't belong to it. Still, storytelling is at the foundation of humankind, and we can see it in things such as the fact that that many origin myths and legends are that tales, originally coming from oral speech. So, as humans can avoid a challenge, along storytelling, literary theory was also born, with its roots in the Greco-Roman era. If you think this is me saying that studying literature involves studying millennia and millennia of sayings from mainly men, well, maybe it is something like that. Plato, Aristotle, and many others paved the way to what we know today as modern literary criticism, including many different approaches that establish certain frameworks to analyze literary works. For instance, we have gender studies, post-colonial studies, trauma studies, affect studies, space studies, sound studies, object studies, animal studies, and even fashion studies, among many more. Believe me. Here, anyway, it gets tricky. Because who are the people who provide this structure of analysis? Well, yes, you guessed it. Academia. The only people who really know about literature. I'm being sarcastic right now, if you didn't catch it. This is why critical thinking is so ridiculously important, because of course, sometimes they will have a point. So that's why it is also vital that you stay alert to perceive any kind of ish that maybe doesn't really apply to what you're reading, or that is something perhaps a little bit outdated. However, what I think most significant to consider from literary theory, that when analyzing a work, we begin asking what it could possibly mean, yet we will never get it completely right. That sounds such a good challenge for me. I don't know about you guys. Give me all the mysteries and impossible truths, please. This is mainly because it is kind of impossible to really decode the author's true intentions. If you heard the concept of the death of the author but doesn't know what it means, it implies ideas of this kind. In his essay of the same title, Roland Barthes expresses, "We shall never know who is speaking, for the good reason that writing is the destruction of every voice. Writing is that neutral, composite, oblique space where our subject slips away, the negative where all identity is lost, starting with the very identity of the body writing." Maybe it's a little bit confusing. These old guys love talking as if they couldn't understand even themselves. But basically here is being said, when any text is produced, it exists on itself. Not in the sense of separating the book from the author, but in the way that another being is created. And it has their own identity, intentions, and goals. Of course, authors think about this while writing. They need to state their own plans for the book, otherwise it couldn't be written. Nonetheless, when it's out to the world, it'll interact with other people, and those interactions will shape a lot how the book or any text is perceived. Therefore, interpretations are just that, and I think that's beautiful. There will never be a clear answer about a book because every reader has their own way of seeing the world. Therefore, the reading experience will affect their final thoughts of the book. By embracing the narrative, you begin to speculate. And that's the secret, my friends. Reading further and further into the lines. And by finding the proper evidence to support your conclusions, you will build a discourse belonging to criticism. But you may be wondering, how do I really do it? You must know there's work beforehand. Maybe you are in the middle of the way. Perhaps you're natural when it comes to digging into a text with multiple angles and perspectives, but if it doesn't come that easily to you, that's completely okay. Most people are in that place. And I also think we all kinda are in some parts, for we never stop learning, and we always should be looking after the cultivation of our mind. Again, critical thinking, I believe, is essential to be an active human being in everything nowadays. So our engagement with texts of any type shouldn't be the exception. Now, do we have to read plenty of academic texts, which many can be dense, unaffordable, and hard to access, in order to interpret a work correctly and be respected for it? No, I don't think so. To start with, whatever you annotate, you still should be respected for it because it contains your personal connection with the book and the result of your experience reading it. If the abstruse prose of a scholastic material holds you back, it's better to begin from the basics. And just as memory, this practice requires constant training. Start getting acquainted with different questionings, rather philosophical, if you will. For example, how we function as a race, how our history has evolved, how our culture works, or how do different cultures work from a respectful and educated position. If you're intrigued by a specific topic, for example, feminism really interests you, go beyond and ask yourself what texts are considered feminist and why. Likewise, the internet provides many free and also affordable courses on a plethora of topics, and there are others that offer a wide range of academic papers or essays across different fields for everyone to explore. We have academia.edu, ResearchGate, EasyBib, Mendeley, among others. Most of them are free, and I believe some of them have subscriptions to access more papers. It is understandable if you prefer other type of media, though. Maybe more engaging or quicker. I know that a lot of people may feel there isn't enough time. I've been there myself. For all the things that we want to do or achieve, a wider space that can provide a lot of insights about anything you can imagine is this platform, our dear YouTube. Here, many talented creators share sharp and smart video essays on modern society. You don't need to agree with everything they say, but just hearing them talk and perceiving how they deliver their arguments is also good practice to start doing it yourself. You know, we are beings of imitation, among many other things. Also, don't forget to pay attention to their research methods because it can also help you to build your own research routine. Some YouTube channels I recommend that I have enjoyed their commentaries, video essays, and the topics they discuss in the past are Shakespeare, Alice Capel, Mina Lee, Tiffany Ferg, Oli Sanvia, According to Alina, Elliot Song, Alexander Avila, The Book Leo, and with Cindy. The last two are mainly booktube/vlogs channels. However, they both usually share well-supported commentaries and some amazing video essays. What best for people interested in literature? If watching video essays or reading theory because you are in college or just because you enjoy it, or if spending your day arguing with the strangers on the internet is part of your routine, then I bet you're already aware of how some dynamics work in our society. So while reading a book, start pondering about a character's journey and how their background shapes the narrative, the story, and the character's interaction with the world. Consider class, race, gender, sexuality, how these intersections converge. Before getting into the plane of intersectionality in literature, the key ingredient to read between the lines is the exercise that was crucial for any assignment I had to do as an English literature student, and that is to look in the word choices presented to you by a text. This is what we call the practice of close reading. It's like putting multi-POV glasses on, and then the text will drop hints for you to identify its core themes within the discourse of the narrative. The most important clues are always going to be the words and expressions in a text. They may seem coincidental, but most of the time they are not. Even if you write something and don't pay attention to the words you choose to convey a message, they still matter. That's why literature is political, and I don't know why people can't seem to get hold of that. No text is ever written without ideology. This doesn't mean only left and right, and maybe this is a topic for another video, but yeah, as no one can write a completely neutral text, authors select specific words with purpose to deliver their message, and those words exalt the book's ideas when in combination with linguistic choices. In summary, according to Harvard University, close reading is the technique of carefully analyzing a passage's language, content, structure, and patterns in order to understand what a passage means, what it suggests, and how it connects to the larger work. A close reading delves into what a passage means beyond a superficial level, then links what that passage suggests outward to its broader context. They also provide their opinion regarding close reading and how much it helps you to train your ability of critical thinking. Practicing close reading will train you to be an intelligent and critical reader of all kinds of writing, from political speeches to television advertisements, and from popular novels to classic works of literature. You become an active reader when you begin to associate, that's the magic word, the concepts with your brain's cultural database, if you will, that you've acquired through life experiences and educating yourself. York University in the writing resource page also puts it like this. In essence, close reading means taking a step back from the larger narrative and examining the constituent parts of a text, paying close attention to the details of a text is a must. It's like gathering evidence to support your interpretation or thesis and how the book is working as a cultural product of its time. An important detail to consider, this applies to all genres of literature. As I was saying, no text can be written without ideology. And the ideology of the book can be as simply as the sky is blue, the grass is green. Those are the ideas embedded in the text's point of view that are commonly socially constructed. Everyone can mostly agree that the sky is blue and everything, but the words we choose to say it also mean something about our culture. So that's why while we are close reading, we are more prone to uncover and explore a text's underlying ideologies. So that's why we mainly use close reading to make new knowledge out of our interactions with a text, to understand more about our position in the world, looking at both what the text says and how the text says what it says. This could be through imagery, motifs, figurative language, and many other language resources we cover in school. And that's how we are allowed to dig deeply into the layers of meaning of a book from different perspectives. And that's how you can start building your own discourse or your own ideas about a book. You must not forget, this exercise mainly involves looking for patterns in the narrative and also searching for places in where those patterns break, and if that event is saying something beyond what we know about the book or the dynamics that the book covers. And then you can start expressing what is important about your observations. What do you think about the patterns that are presented to you and the implicit ideas embedded in those patterns? And if you want to grab a literary framework to carry out your analysis, they are basically the direction you're taking that you want your interpretations to have. For example, my undergraduate dissertation was about this short story by Carmen Maria Machado called The Resident, and I decided to analyze it from a post-colonial framework, but there's also a lot of work that could be done regarding gender. I also went a little bit deeper regarding sexuality and trauma, but yeah, like there are infinite possibilities for you to examine a text as much as it resonates with you. Time for a little exercise. I'm going to read you a quote and explain a bit of the process of doing exactly what I just told you. The quote that we'll be using today is from the book Convenience Store Woman. Sadly, I don't have the book with me. I do own a copy, but I lent it, so for now, it will have to do with the picture of the cover. I keep being fascinated by this quote, even though I read the book a year ago in January of 2024. Yes, I believe in such a short quote, it encapsulates so much regarding the story and the main character at the same time. It goes like this. Oh, I thought absently. I've become a foreign object. Before moving on, I encourage you to pause the video for a bit and take a moment to think about what could be stated about the story and the main character regarding the choice of words here. Think about the layers I've mentioned, and perhaps if you haven't read this book, it'll be a little bit harder, but something crucial in close reading as well is to make your point valid, even if the reader or hearer, in this case, of your analysis hasn't read the text you're mentioning. But don't fret, every association is valid as long as it's supported by evidence in the text. One of the things I enjoy about close reading is that despite the differences in the associations that can come to mind, none is inherently superior to the others. So now I'll leave you to it and I'll come back in a second. So here we can take multiple routes depending on the subjective approach we want to give our analysis. We may lean towards how the character conveys her epiphany with the world absently. Maybe some people wouldn't find these reactions so normal, but then what is normal and what is not? Then we can also pay more attention to the words foreign or object and emphasize how these two words intersect to allow us a more panoramic view of the character. On the one hand, the word foreign can be recognized within the discourse of the other. That is part of the deconstruction framework and many other currents, to be honest. It is a concept that is very quoted in a lot of places and theories. Beyond merely being different from you or the oneself, the other is usually treated as a social outcast, the monster in a fairy tale that does not meet societal norms and conventions, or or they could be also just someone from a minority group, sadly. Colonialism doing colonialism, you know. This is very much defined by social dynamics that keep being present in modern society. So we can discuss about that. If we want to add another layer of meaning, we can ask ourselves, what does the word object tell about the character, about who's saying it? Could be possibly related to her gender and how women also suffer marginalization from objectification. Let your thoughts marinate in your brain and let me know what you think down below in the comments. You can go that way and really explore everything you want. Everything that the text highlights, everything that you could possibly look into. There are no boundaries as long as there's enough palpable evidence in the narrative. Lastly, I want to emphasize again that this concept extends beyond classic literature, literary fiction, non-fiction, or any other more prestigious genre. No matter its genre, a compelling book reveals their backstory and their role in the world as an individual being. They have the ability to do that. Immerse yourself in the characters, their experiences, and their unique expressions to notice how relevant are their difference to the whole story. Allow the words to resonate in your mind, stay alert of how things are being said, let the narrative trap you, and by analyzing its contrasts and implications, observe how the narrative shines from various perspectives. Notice how it becomes vibrant due to all of the nuances attached to the characters and events. Don't forget to consider the emotion the book evokes in you to make notes. They are the most important part of all of this process, because if you're not interested in it or it doesn't hold any significance for you, we won't get anywhere. Okay, so that was it for today. The sun is almost out, so I must end this video. Thank you so much for joining me today in this review of what my degree consisted on, basically. I think I'm excited to do a kind of literature student series. I definitely wanted to talk about intersectionality and how important it is when talking about literature in this video, but most probably I'm doing another video for that, or maybe an Instagram post. But I was also thinking in showing you what I had to read as an English literature student back in my day. So let me know in the comments if that sounds interesting to you, and also tell me what do you think about this video and if it helped you, if you knew about close reading or anything about it. I know in the US it is part of the high school curriculum, so maybe you do know about it. However, this wasn't something that they taught me at high school. Simply my third world country being a third world country. You can also tell me about your own annotating process, if you annotate, how you do it, if you only use tabs, or maybe if you do some little doodles. I would really like to do that, but I'm not that talented. I'm dying to know, so please let's chat down below. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. If you can engage with this video in any sort of way, I would be forever grateful. Any kind of help is helpful for me. Don't forget to check out my other socials that are in the description down below. See you next week. Take care. Bye.